Hello, I don't know if you see me. Well, for me, it's a great honor to welcome you all here with such a beautiful initiative. So let me greet you and thank all the organizers of this forum. Maybe I cannot list everybody, but of course, these are representatives of the European Parliament and the Center of Constitutionalism of the European Humanities University. You know, the topic of universal jurisdiction is relevant for many years. And of course, each painful event connected to commission of international crimes in a certain country, and this is how we can characterize Belarus right now, I think it always raises the issues of responsibility. And the issue of responsibility, of course, they are natural because each crime, and this is the main principle of law and the rule of law, it should lead to liability for this crime. Otherwise, uh, there will be no effective prevention, effective struggle against such phenomena as international crimes, crimes against humanity, that I believe really take place now in Belarus. And of course, to discuss this topic is very important for several reasons. In fact, I believe the very concept of universal jurisdiction, of course, you are going to talk about it a lot deeper, but the very concept of use cogens that are universal, that are recognized by the whole international community, that establish universal challenges, including the protection of a human and of life and dignity of a human, and of course, violation of such norms of organs, and you know it very well, it leads to liability not only between the parties, not only uh, for the person whose rights were violated, but this is also responsibility in front of the whole international community. That's why international community took up the obligation to fight with such crimes, to prosecute such crimes. I'm not talking about genocide, maybe, but really crimes against humanity, including mass torture, including mass persecution for political reasons, and that's what's happening in Belarus. They also cannot remain unpunished. And of course, then we face the problem of effectiveness of usage of such norms, of criminal responsibility according to the international law, because in many countries, and I think the criminal code of Belarus is not an exclusion, although I haven't studied it, but I'm sure there are particular articles about responsibility for such crimes. Even if they're not there, it would still be recognized as a crime according to the international law, because we all know about the principle of prohibiting using uh, retroactiveness, which is not applied. And of course, while looking for the ways how to make such norms effective, here we have the questions. Of course, we know about the International Tribunal. Unfortunately, their jurisdiction, well, I will not talk about some exclusive cases, some unique cases, maybe Belarus, I mean, about the crimes committed by Belarus. Maybe there would be an ad hoc tribunal, not necessarily according to the decision of the Security Council, but if the regime changes in Belarus, it probably could be done according to the international treaty. But of course, international tribunals such as International Criminal Court has jurisdiction here that depends on the agreement of the parties. And in this case, Belarus is not a party to the Rome Statute. So it would be kind of difficult to think of ways how to effectively use the jurisdiction of this court. And then certainly, alternatively, we can speak of something that we call universal jurisdiction, universal but national jurisdiction, when some countries have in their criminal legislation such provisions that they can prosecute people for international crimes committed by them, including a crime against humanity, despite the fact where they were committed and what was the nationality of person who committed them. This could be one of the effective alternatives, should I put it like this, of international jurisdiction, because really, if many countries use such jurisdiction, for instance, towards representatives, or I don't know how to call them, representatives of de facto power in Belarus because it's not legitimate in Belarus, then naturally this could serve as a certain preventive measure for such crimes not to be committed further on, and effective federal prevention, so to say. But of course, while discussing universal jurisdiction, we should always have in mind that we know that such countries, or maybe such regimes, because I don't want to speak about the country as a whole, but such regimes as the Russian regime and the Belarusian regime, they can always use universal jurisdiction and start prosecuting for allegedly committed crimes the people who fight for human rights, who fight for democracy. And this happens sometimes as well. The so-called fabricated cases, they can be launched by such countries with universal jurisdiction. We should always have this in mind, but of course, this is not an argument against the very principle. I mean, the fact that such countries that I mentioned, they always, they can always invent any kinds of cases if they think it's feasible for them against any persons. And of course, this argument uh, cannot be an essential argument against the very concept. And here, I would like to again welcome this initiative, and I think that the very idea of universal jurisdiction belongs to the part of the legal community and lawyers in general who are not indifferent to significant, to essential understanding of the rule of law, for who believe not only in formal respect of law, uh, but yeah, there are certain values in the law that the law should defend. And things that are happening in Belarus, this is anti-law. This is not the law in itself, because the practice of using the law destroys the fundamentals of the rule of law. So, you know, sometimes such there are not so many lawyers like that in our community, but we know that, you know, active minorities who fight for the values sometimes can do a lot, and they are the ones who move the progress, or the engines of the progress of humanity in defense of the values which put people and their dignity in the center. So I would like to wish you all success, and I would like to thank you for your initiatives that again prove that law should be understood not only formally, but also by your heart.